texting her to see.
Oh, you were texting her? Okay.
Yeah, it just came up. It's loading right now.
So we're going to start then, Jared. So I'm just reminding you that we are on a Zoom meeting and that those that were on our public distribution list have been given the opportunity to join us by Zoom. We need to have, obviously, those people that have joined us in the room need to be aware that this meeting will be live streamed and recorded for posterity. That's the back row model. Okay. So when we are making a motion, doing things, if you can say who you are, I will attempt to remember to give your full name, but so let's do a roll call now. Area 1, Magdalene Lehman. Area 2,
David Scott Moncrief.
Area 3,
Nicole Gillis.
Area 4, Ida Campbell sends her regrets tonight. Area 5, Helen Gilbert, that's me. Aaron Evans.
Bill Snow.
That is it. So we are calling this meeting to order at 6:36. And I would like to acknowledge that today's board meeting is being held within the traditional territory of the Denizah and Treaty 8. Are there any additions to the agenda that you have before you? All right. Could I then, if there are no additions, could I please have first and second for that? Bill?
David.
And David? Got it, Leah? All in favor? Thank you. I don't believe we have any presentations or delegations. So trustee celebrations, and we'll start with Aaron.
Homeschooling.
Yay!
I'm not actually doing the bulk of the work, so that's good for me and my relationship with my children. And I just want to, extend gratitude, like I did last month as well, but to, the BCTF and QP, PRTA, and our staff across the district for just being able to kind of go with the flow and get this done. Like, just being able to change direction on a dime is hard for a lot of people. And so, that collective, being able to do it. And I received the surveys, the parent surveys for both the schools my kids go to. I communicated to the one school when I couldn't fill the survey out for technology reasons, but just, yeah, very, very accommodating and kudos. Thank you guys.
Nicole?
Yeah, just busy homeschooling and the sheer number of emails we receive anymore. I don't know how the rest of you do it, who have to open them all. And then last week I attended the labor management meeting via Zoom. Got in trouble because I was out on my sunny deck while everybody else was in their offices.
Making us jealous.
And what?
Madeline?
Attended a SUPAC via Zoom. It was good to just hear a bit from parents too, just what they're dealing with, because I'm not busy homeschooling. I'm busy doing other stuff, but not homeschooling. So that was good, just good to see a bit of a snapshot. And had a few questions with Clary to school, because there were some questions regarding different tiers. And yeah, every now and then you get feedback from parents and you're not sure. So I did connect with Clary.
David?
Number of things. I've been in touch with most of my administrators. They're having some issues with busing, so that's a bit of a challenge, but they're going to try and figure that one out. Was up at 101 about 11 days ago. Had a wonderful meeting up there, and welcomed my brand new baby granddaughter into the world. So about 8 days ago. So.
Bill?
I've been making some contact with my administrators. just to make sure everybody's still there and breathing. Other than that, like Aaron said, I mean, all of our staff is doing wonderful. Just my hat's off to them.
So I too have a new granddaughter, and my son has found a new way to irritate me because she was born on the 10th of May and we still don't have a name. So I am calling her littlest sister. But so that was one of my celebrations, was that I had some feedback from the books that I read on the book reading, and I had some kids send me their pictures of their froggy puppets and their spiders, which was quite exciting. I've done a reach out to the DPAC chair and stayed in contact with my schools. And one of the things I've started to try and do is figure out who in the community we should be thanking for the extraordinary support that we are getting from the community in this time, everything from vehicles to deliver food and things like that. So we'll do a reach out to staff, because I think there should be some recognition coming from the board, and we'll write letters to those people that we want to make sure we have acknowledged, because we are getting through this in a way that is much more positive than what I'm hearing from many other places. And that is because of the support we've had from all levels of staff, as well as our community. So, moving on to 5.0, minutes of the regular board meeting, April 20th, 2020. And we're looking for approval of the minutes that are page 6 to 13 in your package.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Nicole, the seconder.
Aaron Evans.
Aaron Evans. Thank you. Just give a little bit of time for people to review and then ask if there are any errors or omissions. All in favor? Carried. Let's look at business arising from the minutes. And you will see this in your package. This is another place where you've got an attached list of action items. Again, we'll build in this process and continue with it. Any questions related to the action items? All right, so 5.2A, MLA's meeting, which will take place on Wednesday. People did send in agenda topic items. I did do a reach out to people to both the MLAs today for an agenda items, and I hope to have an agenda to you on Wednesday morning. For the meeting, a lot of SD 59 is going to connect by Zoom, a small group, and they've invited Mike Bernier as well to gather in their district office because they can't absorb a lot of people with physical distancing. We can put up to 12 in here, I think, if we're very judicious in our spacing. So we can have a group here as well as people via Zoom. We did look into the DDC and maybe putting everybody into the DDC, but that's just not going to work for this time because there's some construction and stuff going on that impacts the DDC. So that's where we're at with that meeting. Are there any questions about that?
But we can attend here, no problem.
Absolutely, yeah. Just let us know, because Lee and I were trying to figure out what kind of snacks we could have that, you know, we can do. So we'll ask you to confirm if you're attending in person or via Zoom for that. Okay,
Sorry, Manager. When would you like us to confirm that by?
Wednesday morning's fine. Okay. All right.
Sorry, and are any of the guests attending in person?
I don't know, because I just sort of put that out there today. So I don't know, we didn't invite Mike to come here. We assumed that Mike would want to go to there. And we'll see what happens when I hear back from them. I use this MLA account, that might have been a mistake. Okay. Moving on to 6.0, approval of the excerpts of the regular board meeting of March 9th, which is page 14 in your package. Mover and a seconder, moved by Aaron, seconded by Bill. Are there any errors or omissions? All in favor? Carried. Announcement and reminders. We're looking for any additions and changes, and one of the additions we can put in is our May 27th meeting with our local MLAs. Anything else that people see that we need to add there?
The June 26th for Hudson's Hope, is that going to be addressed tonight?
Pardon, Bill?
Will that be addressed tonight? Like, will we let us know what's going on with that?
Stephen was going to check into what was going on with Hudson's Hope's grad, so at last it was a question mark.
So the principal there and their PAC are still working on a potential plan, and I've asked them to write it up, and they'll respond with something.
Because we're still under the no gatherings more than 50 people, right?
So when I talked to him, he felt that there were small enough numbers to do sort of the celebration without the dinner. And then the parents were talking about a drive-in event, which they'll now have to be careful about because they came out with new regulations on Friday saying that even a drive-in can be no more than 50 vehicles. So they're working through that right now.
Any other additions or changes? We'll move on to the senior staff reports, the superintendent's report, page 15.
So Ida, could you put in the preset to focus it on the screen? You're way ahead of me. Okay. Well, thank you, Chair. So Superintendent's report will start off. First of all, a bit of a reminder to the public to please remember the school speed zones being in effect. So we've actually had students on site for a while now, and especially with the stage 3 starting next week, we'd ask the public to be mindful of those posted speed limits around our school zone areas, number one. Secondly, also to remind the public that there are many other resources and updates on our district website to do with COVID specifically, and various parent letters, updates from the ministry, those sorts of things. So going through, first of all, intellectual development. Of course, right now the district and all the schools are in the process of planning for stage 3 re-entry the week of June 1st. And I just thought I'd include the slide from the provincial government here. Why restart schools now? And I know it's in small writing, but it says, number one, it is safe to do so. The number of cases and impacts on BC's health is decreasing. The Public Health Office and international research and science suggest children are less likely to get COVID and less likely to transmit the virus. Number two, our most vulnerable students are the most impacted and need schools to be back in session. Inequities are increasing. Number three, schools are a critical part of BC's restart plan. And finally, number four, re-engaging now sets the stage for a full school restart in September. So that's sort of how the ministry has laid out the rationale for what's happening in stage 3. I've included here a picture of a classroom from Devon Grant. I was hoping to have a bus one, Chair, but I didn't get that for this one, maybe for the next one. And it just shows how they're going to be attending to that sort of 50% density in a specific elementary classroom. I'm not sure what grade that is, but it just shows you how those might be spaced out. A bit of a summary, and of course, as you know, schools themselves are in direct contact with the parents now in terms of who is coming, what days those kids are coming on and those sorts of things, but I thought I would just summarize for the public the premise of all of this. So for stage 3, we'll begin the week of June 1st. As always, it's about safety first. All WorkSafe BC, public health, and Ministry of Education requirements are now in place for stage 3. Our local health and safety committees are meeting this week with staffs to make sure that those regulations are followed, printed, posted, and shared with all of the staff members. The models entail basically offering about 2 days a week at the elementary level and 1 day per week at the middle secondary level. For elementary, up to half of the students will attend on Tuesday and Wednesday. That'd be like group 1, while the other half will attend on Thursday and Friday, group 2. Mondays will be used to support remote learning for those students not attending. Attendance will be staggered to ensure no more than 50% density at any given time at the elementary level and 20% at middle and secondary. For remote learning, the quantity of work and contacts with the family will be reduced. So the same kind of pace would not be maintained with some of the on-site instruction taking place. Schools are in the process of connecting with families to find out which students are coming back the week of June 1st. Attendance is optional. The schools in the district continue to plan the logistics around transportation, access to the buildings, etc. A lot of that will be based on how many families are sending their kids back to school. And they are in contact with our transportation supervisor. Service to vulnerable students and the children of essential service workers is available up to 5 days per week in consultation with the child's home school. Early learning initiatives I've included in here, just the fantastic work that this group has done. So while you're not able to have our typical welcome to kindergarten events in person on school sites and even some of our Ready, Set, Learn pieces, here you'll see where the Learning Services Department and our Early Learning Department have put together a number of not just book readings, but extension activities to go along with it that parents can follow. And so while schools will be reaching out and using these resources, parents can actually start to peruse them now and start to see how they can help their kids be ready for kindergarten when they come back. So on to human and social development. Our Director of Instruction, Carleen Andrews, is been working all along with staff. And this is a particular survey that she sent out in terms of what is the interest and what are the needs for particular areas of dealing with anxiety, dealing with social and emotional learning. And she got some great feedback from the staff. She has also organized several Zoom as well as a few in-person sessions for staff, has information out for the families, and continues to pay attention to this particular area. This graph here shows that up until last week, May 11th through 15th, we then had 565 students on site that week. And it shows you in the previous weeks how that has significantly grown over the last 4 weeks. And so there's even more from last week. The latest data that we got on Friday is about 600. So all along, we've been able to support a number of students who are vulnerable or who are children of Tier 1 or Tier 2 emergency support workers. Also, in a specific way, how are we supporting our Indigenous students during this pandemic? And so here, I won't read it all out, but there's a summary of what is happening between our Indigenous support workers, as well as what the Indigenous Department is doing with specific kids and families. And then below that are some examples of how we're reaching out to the bands, some of which you are aware of being locked down. And so both our Indigenous Center principal as well as the Indigenous support workers have been reaching out to the band specifically on how are those students doing, how is the band getting along, and checking in with them. Pat Jadson, the principal there, has also included a bit of a thank you from one of the families that she works with in terms of just how often and how supportive an Indigenous support worker has been for her child and the family. So that's something you can read through there as well. Additionally, I thought I'd show you here all of these fun and creative ways, of course, that teachers have been and will continue to connect virtually and sometimes in interesting ways.
Hi everyone. I thought I should address some concerning matters. Mostly, how much I miss having you led to the school. Also, to help you succeed, step one, dress for success.
So I won't play the whole video, and so they're having a bit of fun with their Scottish accent and connecting with their kids while they haven't been able to be in person so far. Under career and skill development, after this report, there will be a separate item to approve a BAA course. And here is another video. This is a particularly polished one. They made some improvements to the audio.
Hello, School District 60 students. Most of you already know me as Miss Dr. Conway. You usually see me coming into your schools and teaching fun hands-on applied design skills and technology projects. They will be a little bit different because I will be teaching you digitally from my makerspace to yours. When working in any type of makerspace, please make sure to review the Be Safe in Your Makerspace protocols.
So if I just fast forward a bit, it kind of walks through, and they can slow this down of the particular project each month that is coming out for ADST. So that's something you can view on your own as well. And on to operations and human resources. So for Butte Creek School, last year there were some staffing challenges that led the board to offer some other options for the 17 students that were there. This included the option of attending Presbyterian School, Upper Pine School, or registering with the Key Learning Center for a hybrid distance education program. So most families elected to follow the hybrid distance education program for the 2019-20 school year. So that's in our current year that we're in. So while the staffing challenges continue, we will be able to offer an on-site instruction for the 2020-21 school year with teachers commuting from town. The program will be administered by the Key Learning Center and will include 4 days of on-site instruction along with a day of remote instruction and support. And the student and staff will be following the regular district calendar. So we were pleased to find a solution that allowed for the vast majority of time to be on-site. And this way we were able to get teachers to be involved in the program and coming from town. A heads up to the public and to our board that for fall of 2020, unfortunately, there were not enough applicants to make a cohort run at the college. So, they'll be applying again or joining again for the following year, and hopefully there's a healthy cohort at that time. They weren't sure if they would have enough to do this every year. It used to be every 2 years, and then there was funding in place to put it into every year, but unfortunately there were not enough applicants this year. It's a bit disappointing, of course. It does have implications when we were able to have a number of them in December graduate and bring them into our pool. Yeah. Bit of an update on our post-April employment compensation continuity. You'll remember that there was a letter on April 27th from the province of BC that signaled an end to the full salary support for all public sector employees. The district then engaged with our CUPE union partners to determine any changes to staffing levels. Following an agreed upon process, 25 CUPE employees took a temporary full-time leave, 24 took a part-time temporary leave. This is out of a group that includes about 400 employees. However, with the advent of stage 3 back to school plans, several of those employees will be recalled or have their time increased back to levels that were there in the past for some of them. There will be a school charges motion following this report. As always, I invite the public and trustees to read through backgrounder number 4. This is an Indigenous education resource book that was put out by FINESC. And the topic this week is number 4, which is some information on the language and oral traditions of Indigenous peoples. So please have a read through that. And finally, some fun examples of things happening around the district. So from Upper Pine Elementary, Junior Secondary, these students were profiling the projects that they were doing at home, and they were sharing them with their teacher and their classmates. And they did some really neat things here. One was a birch bark canoe by Charlie King, a lever machine by Sam Disterkius, and a density experiment by Jack Smith. Also at Allen Holland, they had a scavenger hunt with Mr. Platzer's class. And they had funds sort of going around some predetermined locations to follow through on that. Even our band program has gotten in on the act, and here are our band teachers performing remotely a little bit of a mini concert. And so.
Hi everyone, I was feeling sad and lonely, so I brought all of my band teacher bands together to play you Mexican hat dance.
All right, I think you get the idea there. And the bus drivers continue, and we're continuing and do continue to provide all kinds of additional supports, both down at facilities with dispatch, picking up our vulnerable students, as well as a number of the community service projects in which they've been involved in. And please have a read through there, some of those neat projects that they've done. Kran Elementary has been sending out not just for the food for certain vulnerable kids, but basically packages for the entire family. And what's been great is I've seen these packages over at the school, and they've set it up in the gym. They include recipe cards, nutrition information, and it becomes just, in fact, the whole sort of cooking and health and wellness activity for the family. Ann Roberts Young got in on the act as well, and the construction crew there built a wired heart. It's quite large, actually. As you can see, there's about 4 feet by 4 feet, and that is currently posted at the top of Ann Roberts Young School, facing the hospital. And it's lit up every night, and it's sort of expressing their gratitude towards our healthcare workers. Finally, Kran is very grateful to the board and to the district for supporting the renovations. Kran is one of our schools that has a number of students that need extra support, and they're feeding a lot of kids and families. And this renovation and expansion of their canteen facility will go a long way to making that happen. So I invite trustees to, when you're able and when sort of COVID allows, to go and check out the new canteen. And that is my report.
So before we move on to accepting Stephen's report, there are 2 motions that we will pull out and do separately at the end. We need a motion related to approval of the fees and a course approval. So we'll pull those out after we've had our discussion. So could I have somebody who will first? I'll move the report. Nicole Gillis. A second. And now we can move on to discussion from the trustees. Yeah.
I have nothing.
Nicole?
Just quickly on the ACO program, just so I can understand this. It really hasn't, what is it? It's not the same as a 4-year diploma or degree, is it? Is it shortened? Is it a 4-year degree? How did ACO work?
How it generally works is that the students already have a degree. Then one pathway. And then they do sort of a 2-year program with ACOT, which then gets them certified as teachers. They can also, path number 2, if they don't have a degree already, they can take courses and get those credits leading towards a degree plus their professional year with ACOT. ACOT stands for the Alaska Highway Consortium on Teacher Education. It's affiliated with Simon Fraser University.
So somebody who has ACOT, can they only teach in a certain area? Like our area, they can teach anywhere in BC or?
Anywhere in BC.
Okay. Because it has the Alaska Highway thing to it. For some reason, I always had that it was about keeping them, less training, but keeping them here. So I had a bit of a miss.
ACOT is the PDP, the Professional Development Program piece of it. So if they don't have a degree, they have so much time where they have to get a degree after they've graduated from ACOT.
Oh, so they do have to continue.
Eventually,
Okay.
yeah.
But it could be a degree in anything?
Well, it should be a teachable degree. So if you don't have a teachable degree, because when you apply to ACOT, then you have to do what we call at the college like a pre-ACOT. It's kind of like like an Associate of Arts degree. So can be 2 to 3 years depending on other credits that you have. And then from that, once you've graduated from that program, it's not a full bachelor's degree, then you can apply to get into the ACOT program.
So what is the advantage? Why not just go get your Bachelor of Education?
It's very competitive.
Okay. And because it's not taught here.
and it's not here. So, so students would have to leave here to go on site to another institution, and that does not guarantee that they get into the PDP program. So they can have a bachelor's of education, apply to a PDP program at UBC, SFU, UVic, wherever, but they may not get in.
And you have to have a PDP
To
program?
teach, yes.
We don't call it PDP at every university. Just to be clear, Chair, there are very few Bachelor of Education programs left in Canada. 90% of the programs are now get your degree, make sure it's a teachable area, and they do a professional year to get your teacher certification.
Okay.
UVic is one of the only universities left. It's the only one in BC that has a Bachelor of Education. That's quite rare now.
I think one of the things that's been a huge advantage of ACODE is for people to be able to do their education here. And I've often seen people go into the program after their kids get to the stage of more independence and they're going back into ACODE when their kids are in grade 5 and grade 6. And I can name a number of excellent teachers that have come through that program. And they come and have the community knowledge when they step out into the schools. And we're not going through that period of adjustment and recruiting and retaining that we do with people that come from away. So that's quite sad. And I just really hope the references that I did for a number of people that applied for this year stand, and I don't have to do it again next year. But
It's a good program. Like, you know, I've had some ACODE students in some of my classes, and it's really cool to see them, you know, like they're not in ACODE, they're in the pre-ACODE. But yeah.
Stephen, I was just going to say, I've participated in a number of meetings now that help me understand what schools are doing to prepare to have kids back. The one piece I'm not as sure about is that food distribution piece. Are we going to continue to feed kids by sending food home, or are we now trying to do food during the day?
Mostly, I would say, without knowing every single school situation, but it's a good question. Mostly our administrators have talked about moving to more on-site support. And so, as you can imagine, they can't necessarily do both.
No.
For each family and each child. And so we are really moving more towards the on-site, keeping in mind that a lot of our vulnerable kids can attend up to 5 days a week.
Nicole? One more. It wasn't spoke to directly. I guess it was in your report. So we're talking about back to school, June. So do you have a better idea today than the last time we met about I guess just our availability of on-call teachers if there are staff that aren't returning next Monday?
I don't have that. Today was the first day, actually, that we had asked all staff to be on site. And so throughout this week, we'll definitely have a better idea. I'm afraid I don't know the exact numbers.
We have a good number of.
The vast majority of our staff have been on site.
So can I ask we'll call the question on that aspect of Stephen's report. All in favor?
No, I'm not.
Okay. And we'll move into the two motions that need to be pulled out. Could I get a motion, please, to support the course approval for the Makers Making Change course?
Erin Evans, so Area 5, I will make that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Seconder?
David?
Thanks, David. Madeline beat you on that one, though. We'll keep you in mind.
No worries.
Any discussion or questions? I'm excited by this. The one opportunity that could come out of it that's not actually identified in our application is that concept of intergenerational support. Because many of our seniors in our community are just as much in need of assistive devices like door handle grips and things like that. So once it gets going, I'd like to see that potential community reach out and quite excited about it. So could I have somebody? You got it? Can we have the question then? All in favor? And now on to fee approval. And David, we're going to, if you're okay with this, give you the opportunity to make the motion on fee approval.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Kran Evans, Zone 5.
All right. Any discussion related to that document?
I ask this question every year, and I'm going to ask it again this year. Why is there so much discrepancy on things, even just like the agendas and books and, you know, supplies? And I get it. It's about the community and stuff, but
I can speak to the agenda a little bit, Erin. There's a volume. The more you order impacts,
yeah.
whether you include your handbook. And then some of the agenda companies have a specific teaching package you can add to the agenda. So not necessarily are all agendas created equal.
So why are we using one company for the whole district and trying to argue for a better price for everybody?
I think it's a good question we can take away. I will say that a partial answer to your question is that a lot of this is school-based management. And each principal and teacher has a different idea of what is the right product or process that they would like to use. So we're
Just thinking about money.
Yeah, totally. It is one particular item, though, that people feel very passionate about in terms of which tool is used, and we've allowed that to be done and decided on a site-by-site basis. But it's a great question we can bring back.
Bill and Madeline?
Aaron, we had discussed this before about the supplies, and in the long run, I believed it was going to be bought in bulk, but we just hadn't got to that stage yet. Correct?
I don't remember. I just thought I'd bring it up.
We were looking at getting like a purchasing person,
Yeah.
right, and buy in
They
bulk.
done that, moved away from it.
We were looking at a procurement issue, and then that would have helped us both buy, but that was, I'm not sure.
The district absolutely is continuing to explore better ways to purchase things large scale to save money where it's consistent. So everybody needs paper, for example. They may not all agree on the agenda, particular agenda, but they all need paper. So we definitely are moving down that pathway of bulk purchasing, working with our focus, what we call the focus supplier, in terms of the entire province, you know, involved in purchases. So that work actually is on its way.
Buying supplies is a science. There's lots of ways of saving money, but there's teachers that want very specific things. You will get, I want 6 different colored duotangs. I want this size exercise book. They can be very specific in their wants and needs.
Well, absolutely. And even as an instructor at the college, I mean, you know, we have things that we can get, right? That the college bulk buys that comes out of our budget for our program. But if I want 6 duotangs of a different color, I've got to pay for that, which is okay for me, you know, and I think that that's reasonable, right? I don't think teachers should be buying supplies, but, you know, if there's a way that we can get, you know, 10,000 packs of Crayola, you know, pencil crayons, that's way cheaper than another way, then I think we should be looking at that. And if a teacher doesn't like Crayola,
Madeline? Where that we need to have this motion and pass it now. I don't know if I can follow. I mean, I'm just before, you know, there's obviously going to be maybe wiggle room for.
Like, you mean like?
We don't know. Is it going to be
Learning or-
full-time school? Are we going to do?
Oh,
Yeah.
like, would you do?
I know.
face-to-face?
I think we have, and I mean, I thought of that when I was posing questions, and I do have one here, but I think we have to plan for September as normal, and then it's going to be like what we've been doing for the last few months, contingency planning. I do know that in this particular account, if you don't follow the cycle of buying school supplies,
Mhm.
sometimes by the middle of September, you can't get anything. So, I would like to see within the document a consistency around whether we're calling it classroom with technology, curriculum with technology, wireless writing. It's used all those ways. And if I'm public, I don't know. And then in the RO, we have a sports fee charge in one column at $20 and then $10 in the conforming. So it's just a little thing that needs, but what are we going to call it? And it should be consistent. So not mine to fix, somebody else's. Nicole?
Just two, the ELC in North Peace has a caution fee. What is that? Oh, okay, because another school called it a textbook brief. I just lost it on text.
idea when if we broke stuff, go back.
And then Burpos has a female PE class for 160. What's that? That's just gym class for?
Yeah, it's kind of like a mini academy, I suppose, and then they do some extra activities associated with that. And so
Okay.
there'd be the cost associated with the additional activities.
So it's not a generic gym class.
They'll do yoga.
But so other kids who don't have $160 have a chance still
Oh,
to
you
do
can
it.
still do any of the other, correct.
Okay. Okay. Call the
Sorry, do those kids that don't have $160, they can't join that gym class?
All schools.
I know historically, schools have, waived fees for families that can't afford it on, in a very respectful, confidential manner. But when it comes to things like this, is there?
No different. I can absolutely tell you that whether it's a particular sports trip, whether it's a team, whether it's school supplies, whether it's a number of areas, schools continue to support kids that can't pay for it. We have funds that come from the ministry that we then share with the schools. The PACs sometimes help out with that, but we're definitely in tune with those kids that can't afford it.
So this, because I don't recall that gym class last year at Bose, but so students that want to join that class can still have the opportunity to join that class.
Absolutely.
So would that be same of the $400 fee for the hockey academy at the ELC? Because that starts getting pricey. You start getting a lot of people wanting that.
As those parents or families approach the school or when they find out that that's an issue, and sometimes, for example, whether it's the hockey academy fee or whether it's the trip to Quebec,
Yeah.
which costs $1,000, often we come up with payment plans.
Okay.
We come up with a percentage of it. So for the $400, maybe the family can afford 300, school pays the other 100. It's such an individualized approach. All I can confirm is that we do work with families to support them where finances are an issue.
So there's a sensitivity to financial.
Totally, and a mutual responsibility and a bit of a partnership. It's not just.
So maybe I would just suggest that on that Burpos one or any other ones we see, there is a spot for explanation if required. So because this is public, I would just like on that Burpos one, now I can't find it, for the description be just so people understand it's not the only PE class a female can take. Right, there's other options.
A lot of,
I just think that's.
and on some things, you'll find that there's the caveat that they put that if a family can't afford it, there's support. I can't remember the exact wording, but that wording is in there on some things.
Duly noted.
I think.
I think it goes back to the consistency that you and Madeline brought up about each of the columns. I know that was an issue previously.
Okay.
So all in favor? That's done.
Thank you.
We're moving on to 8.2, Secretary Treasurer's Report, page 16 in your agenda packet.
So the first item on my report is the financial overview to April 30th. So you can see on the attached document that our revenues to April 30th are $54,642,168. Our operating expenses are $53,489,431. To date, our capital purchases from operating are $1,652,014, leaving a net operating expense of $449,277. So that is a net deficit at this point to the end of April. That's in line with where we were projecting to head for our amended annual budget. And it's consistent with where we thought we would be this fiscal year and what we had planned for. So with the COVID-19, we haven't yet able with continuity of pay. There wasn't significant reductions in our expenses that were reflected in that. Once we might see some changes in the May report that comes to the June board meeting. But overall, we've seen significant expenses related to COVID in regards to cleaning supplies and purchasing sanitizer, etc. So this is just a snapshot overview, and it is in line with what we were anticipating. So that's the financial report for the board. Next is just a handout around the draft budgeting procedure, which is not attached to my agenda package. So it was just a write-up.
Good handout.
Okay, yeah. So it's on there as a handout.
So you're not supposed to put it as a handout, sorry.
Well, is there a handout? Like, did we give it to? No, he didn't make.
I didn't get it.
No, that's the write-up that was.
We got this sitting at our desk.
No, no, that's not ready.
There's an email, or no, that's the budget public hearing.
This around the budget, Leah. Yes, that was, yeah, so that was just an update of where we're at in the budget process. I apologize that I can't find my copy, but basically, we're in line with what we had presented to the board at the April board meeting with our budget process during COVID. So we had, given the COVID-19 restrictions around meetings and public,
Sorry, this part. I messed up.
Right. It was a report of the status of our annual budget preparations for the 2021 year. So we set out a timeline at the April board meeting around in the COVID situation with not being able to have consultation meetings, that we would do surveys out and we would prepare a draft annual budget for the June committee meeting. So we'll have the draft budget for the district at the June committee of the whole meeting at the public session, which is on June 8th. So that is just a little summary of the process, the assumptions that were made, and that the annual budget is still in development, but it will be ready for release to the public on the June 8th committee meeting. And then we will have a link on our website for email questions or concerns regarding annual budget. And then the timeline is the board will consider adopting the annual budget at the June 22nd board meeting. So at that meeting, we will do 3 readings of the annual budget if the board supports the process, and then we'll go from there. And then the next item is just, sorry, not just, it's my report for human resources, sorry. And that is my report.
I'll make the motion to move that report.
And Evans Zone 5 will second that.
Right, discussion.
So I assume this large number of leaves of absences is due to the COVID.
Yes.
So what is the difference? Or I don't know, maybe it's none of my business, but it's not a layoff these people are getting. So are they then applicable? Are they able to get EI? Are they going to the CERB? Or what are these people able to get when they just take their leave of absence?
And that's why we wanted to do it rather than a layoff, is so that the district committed for continuity of benefits. So if it was a layoff, for example, their benefits wouldn't necessarily continue.
Okay.
So we wanted to do it as a leave of absence, and sometimes it was a full leave of absence, and sometimes it was a partial leave of absence, depending on the meaningful work that could be, utilized in that position. And so we went through on an individual basis. We worked with the QP local and executive in order to look at each school and each employee to determine whether, in some cases they requested for various reasons, whether it was immune compromised or childcare issues or different reasons. And so I think it was a really good process where we considered on an individual basis each person's needs and adapted to, the direction the district took in each circumstance, and made sure we were maximizing any benefits that they could access. It was a very collaborative process to make sure that we really took care of our employees.
So do you know if they're eligible for that CERB if they take a leave of absence?
Yes, like it depends on the circumstances. Like, for example, if it was for medical reasons, perhaps not, if they weren't able to work. But if there wasn't meaningful work for that position and they agreed to a layoff, then yes, they would be able to access those benefits.
Okay, but it's not called a layoff, it's just leave of absence.
Yes,
Okay.
because if it was a layoff, it might have affected their seniority, it might have affected their benefits. And so we didn't want to trigger some of those provisions in the collective agreement that might have adverse effects on employees. For example, if the COVID situation continued on for a certain amount of months, then they may have lost their position with the district. If it was a layoff, those recall provisions wouldn't have come into effect. So we really looked at the different types of leaves that were available to make sure that we weren't adversely impacting the employees where possible.
Any other questions or discussions? David, anything from you? In Hinterland? Okay. All right, hearing nothing else, we'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. So your report is accepted. Moving on to 9.0, reports of the regular committee of the whole meeting, May the 4th, 2020, page 17 to 23 in your package. I'm looking for approval of those minutes.
So moved, Nicole Gillis.
Thank you. Second, Erin Evans.
Thank you. Are there any errors or omissions in those minutes? Calling the question.
I just want to comment. I'm really glad that Dr. Kim allowed the playgrounds to be open, because I've known lots of families that are able to, with this nice weather, kick their kids outside and they go play. It's been nice.
So is this errors or omissions, and then we'll talk about business arising from?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor? Okay, business arising from those minutes. And that's where we'll take a look at the action item that are below that come forward. And is there anything else that comes out of those minutes? We have two motions related to the action items.
Well, my report's finished, so it has to be the Secretary Treasurer.
So item 9.2A is the Ann Roberts Young Music Room naming. So there's a staff report attached to the minutes, attached to the agenda package. I'm sorry, on
It looks like this.
which page?
It's not a page number, it's just an
The action items.
It's an action, it's an action item.
So,
So there is a recommendation that could be made into a motion right there.
And Evans, Area 5 will make the motion that the music facility at Ann Roberts Young Elementary School be named the Heather Hannaford Art Space.
Second that, please.
Seconds? Right? Okay, so what are we doing? We're doing this because we talked about a committee of a whole and we can't make motions there. Is that what we're doing?
That's right.
Okay. Okay, all in favor? That one is carried. Schedule of board meetings, which we looked at.
So I had a question from those minutes.
All right.
So it's not business rising, it's just in these minutes, we talked about NPSS grad and what they were thinking of doing. So would this be where I'd ask if how that's playing out? Stephen?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So really well, they've been in contact and have heard back from their families, and they have a plan in place. They're just putting some final pieces in with the city. The latest is that they will be able to follow physical distancing, but still have, in a scheduled way, each family come, cross the stage in the gym, get their picture taken with their hat and gown, receive their certificate, have the scholarship information on the big screen, record it all, provide follow-up DVDs to the kids. And there'll also be photos in the next gym over, again, scheduled over the course of a couple of days. There is also going to be a live stream type of event where there'll be pre-recorded speeches from dignitaries, including the board chair, myself, the mayor, and then a reverse parade, basically around 86 down to the green space by the fire hall, up to 100th Avenue and that whole block, then over to Robert Ogilvie. So they're just putting the final touches on it, and then we'll publish it.
Reverse parade, does that mean the grads are in cars and then people are waving it?
No, the grads are lining that block
Oh,
and
and
just their family. And
Okay.
people can come by and say hello as they're driving by.
okay.
Yeah, you can drive by.
Yeah, so it's a parade. It's not one event, but we certainly have the new guidelines that we'll vet through, we'll go through.
Don't throw stuff in your car at them. Dirty
We
man.
can't have 50 cars.
You're not supposed to have more than 50 cars in a drive-in event.
It's a drive-by,
It's
a
a
drive-by.
Even just the drive-in, that's interesting that they,
But it's a drive-by. Don't throw candy out your windows because then they'll run and.
By the way, this will include, they're not blocking off the streets, which is why it's not just one event. Traffic will continue, but the grads will be placed strategically around that area.
do you know, have you spoken to Randy? Has there been social media was a buzz, unfortunately. Do the parents seem somewhat contented? Because some districts are doing nothing.
The vast majority are very pleased with the efforts. Like, we've involved Russell Eggleston from Sound in Town, and some of the photo booths they're going to be setting up. The follow-up is really quite excellent. However, I am aware of other districts not only either aren't doing anything, or there's petitions in place where they want to have a mass event, and that's simply not going to happen. So the vast majority are absolutely in favor. There's definitely a percentage that are still understandably very unhappy.
Yeah, I just felt like with everything else, trying to get school back running and then also planning this grad. And the majority of people he's probably hearing for the unhappy ones. I was just feeling sorry for.
Most
High
have been
school
very
staff.
supportive.
Good. Bill?
Question about the playgrounds. I have one right pretty well beside my house at Kearney there, and see families there quite often now, which is great. And they're spacing out, which is nice. I mean, there's a couple of different sets of equipment there, so they space out on them. But the question I have is, our fields, are they open or closed to groups that aren't direct family living in houses?
So we never did close the fields. The fields were always open. we're just asking for any groups that are using our facilities to make sure that they're following the provincial health officer guidelines and keeping, socially distanced, etc. So I think like sporting events, close contact sporting events like soccer, etc., don't fit within those guidelines. So we wouldn't want to have those types of things happening. But if a family's out there for a touch football game, then that may be something different.
Trust me, I miss my sports right now.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, we've been told that we're not allowed on the city fields. Right? But our school fields, I'm curious, if they're.
Yeah, we had left the school fields open. But it might be, they might be too wet. I don't know. Maybe that's why the city hasn't opened theirs or something. I'm not certain about what the city is doing in regards to theirs.
Yeah, I just know that too. I was just reading today on the local news that two minor leagues have already canceled their outdoor season. So
Yeah.
Minor is it baseball or softball, and then minor soccer too.
Yeah, I just got the notice on minor soccer.
Yeah, so.
I thought baseball was gonna go just a month later, like June
Oh,
or
this is
July.
minor, so I don't know about the adults, but the kids have been canceled.
All right, let's move on then to, we're looking at 9.2B. And we did look at the board meeting schedule last time, and the staff have brought it to us again with the changes that we had suggested.
Aaron Evans, Area 5, will make the motion that the proposed calendar for the 2020-2021 Board of Education meetings be adopted and published.
I'll second that.
Thank you, David. Seconded by David. You okay over there, fast fingers? Yeah. Where are we? We're at 9.2B. All in favor? Questions being called.
Do you have a question?
No. Okay.
On favor.
Okay. Carried. Policy Committee 9.3, Aaron, you're up.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for their work on this policy 4000.1, the role of the superintendent, CEO. There is an attachment. I just have to pull it up here. So this is coming to us for a notice of motion. So it will go out to the public for 30 days, and then we'll vote on it in 30 days. And just again, I think this is great. Well done. Thank you. Stephen did some work as well, researching and investigating different policies around the province, and some were, a couple of sentences to a book. So I think Stephen's done very well, and our staff have done well to somewhere meet in the middle. And if there's any questions on this too, the reference is the School Act, which is a direct link. So if you click on the School Act, you can go directly to the School Act and check out section 22 and 85 for more information on that. And we will be taking, this is for public consultation for 30 days with this notice of motion. And I believe we need.
We only need somebody to move it. We don't need it. I got to take firster out of my vocabulary.
Sorry, that's my word.
We only need somebody to move it, and it's not a seconder at this point in time. So could I have somebody willing to make the notice of motion?
Bill Snow? Area 5.
Okay. So thank you. That's done. Moving on to section 10.0, other reports. We'll start with BCSTA, and
I don't have anything.
I do. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, that's all right. Donna Sargent is our new NIB contact, and she has done a reach out and has sent a 3-question survey that I haven't answered yet because I was waiting for tonight. One was, how are budgets going for 2021 going? How is planning for tier 3, and are there any areas where you as a board would specifically like help from the BCSTA? So that was the question I wanted to bring back to you before I responded to her.
Wasn't that have to be a plan as of today? Didn't we need we need a plan in place by June 1st, right?
Well, I guess the plan had to go today, and we had the meeting on Friday, but the other elements were something I wanted to bring back today. Erin?
I do have something, but we had discussed it in camera prior to this, so I would like to have that discussion for some of it in camera. But
Okay.
as for the public piece, I think just thanking them for their advocacy so far, really, because Stephanie has been out there in the public and really, engaged in the planning for everybody to go back in June, and so that I think has been great.
And then the other thing is I think in an email I'd mentioned that we were going to have the opportunity to hear from a public health officer with any questions we as a board have related to where we're at around COVID. And that will take place on Friday morning. And we'll have, I think it's Dr. Cornel is who they were talking about having on the call, as well as Minister Fleming. And if we have any questions that we want to submit as a board, I have to have them to Stephanie by 9 o'clock on Thursday morning.
Seems like there's a million questions. I can't think of any.
Well, if you think of any, fire them my way, because I did.
So that's just somebody from the PHO office.
Yeah.
And it should be school related, obviously.
School related, and Dr. Cornel was the one person that did a reach out to our support staff and went through some things around when we were moving to have the essential service workers children into the school, and did some reach out around the science around kids and transmission and care for those kids. Right. Maybe what the BCSTA had asked for is we've got all these documents and things that are being created, and we're looking at them. Can we talk to somebody who can answer any questions we have related to the science behind things? Hence, this call got set up.
Right. So one question I can think of is, would you ask a question if there's new stats about the transmission rates for children?
Yeah.
We've heard some, but maybe by now they have new ones.
Okay.
And just because I'm interested in, originally the ministry said K to 5, right? But they are allowing some to go to 6. So if that's a real age point or what, and then what that transmission rate is.
Okay.
And then I hate to beat a dead horse, but I guess I still have a real question about mask wearing. If you dare want to ask that question, what he thinks about wearing masks. Who are you protecting? Yourself wearing it or the people around you?
You're protecting, from my understanding at this point, you're protecting the people around you. And I know that Dr. Tam from the federal had suggested people can now wear masks, but her concept, the concept of where you need a mask is in an uncontrolled situation where you're in close contact for 15 minutes. Schools are considered a controlled setting because we have all of the measures in place. So it's not mandatory that people wear masks. Like if you're going to your hairdressers now, you're going to have to wear a mask.
Okay.
But there is choice. If it's going to make you feel really comfortable and feel safer in the school environment to wear a mask as either a student or a staff member, go for it. That's kind of where things are at on that.
Maybe also,
Right, I'm writing.
okay, so there's also new science behind it, that it's not actually that transmittable on surfaces. Because I do have a question about, I've heard from a few people, bathrooms. So when the schools reopen, kids are going to be using the same toilets. And I think the protocol just says twice a day, the bathrooms are going to get cleaned.
Yeah.
So, and kids are supposed to wash their hands. Kids are kids. Fine with washing hands, but what about wiping pee off the seat from the last guy? So just new science on touch surfaces, because a few days ago they were saying actually it's not easily transmitted through surfaces like textbooks and crayons, so kids don't have to be as careful as we thought. So by Friday he might have some new science there.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'll stop.
Okay. I don't have anything from BCPC. I don't have any correspondence. I don't have any unfinished business. I do have some new business. So sometimes things come up and they don't fit into the nice, neat timelines of our board meetings. And we were at, if I went back to last year, Aaron met with the Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services. They were going around the province. She also wrote a letter that we referenced when we were looking at the funding formula review that went through the things that we needed as a district. This district has a history of being part of any process with the Select Standing Committee on Budget Preparation. So we were due to COVID-19. All public hearings will be held by video conference, and the format has obviously changed. The public hearings are going to be organized by theme, and the groups will be put together in small panels based on themes. And we had to, as a district, express our interest in participating in this committee by May the 21st. So we did express our interest, and we'll have an opportunity to make a written audio or video submission because we did complete their survey. And then what we said, we had to identify 3 themes. And the themes that we identified that we would like to be part of somebody with K-12 education on a video conference. The 3 specific areas of interest we would like to speak to were support for rural and remote communities. And there was a feeling that there are some things that have come through in the budget out of like the increases around funding for rural schools and things like that we've talked about that we could do as a thank you, but there's still areas perhaps such as transportation that we have concerns about. So we can kind of do a bouquet and oh, by the way. And they're in careers, trades, and education funding and recruitment and retention. And we were supposed to list 3 organizations we would be interested in presenting alongside. And we said other education, northern communities, and childcare. So I'm assuming we'll hear back and we'll put it on the June committee of the whole meeting for feedback from the whole board as to what we should be highlighting in that presentation. So I made a commitment for you.
Thank you.
Erin.
Can we actually, because I think these are similar or the same as were from last year. It seems
Last year in your letter, it was capital funding, formula review, contract negotiations, recruitment and retention, and staff compensation. Given our earlier conversation, staff compensation comes into there.
probably, yeah, under recruitment and retention, we could slip that in. But can we see for the June committee of the whole meeting, if it's not, if, you know, even just like a draft presentation of what this would look like? Because when I went and presented, I just presented the letter really and just spoke a little bit more about the letter. But if we can see something in draft form.
I'm very happy to do a draft, but I want it to represent what you guys think is
Yeah,
important.
just
So you fire off what you think is important to me. I'll work with Brenda and I'll have a draft for June 8th.
Yeah, because I'm somebody, I need to kind of see where your brain is, like, you know, where people's brains are going, and because I can fire something, but in order to actually see it at the committee meeting, a draft would be beneficial for me.
Nicole?
What's the timeline on this? Like, when do you have to do prepare?
It sounds like,
The deadline is, sorry,
Go
June
ahead.
26th for submission. So we could have a rough draft at the June committee meeting, get input on it, and then finalize our submission at the June 22nd board meeting for input. I'm assuming we're going to do like a written submission.
I don't know if we'll do, we said that our preferred method would be video conference. So I'm assuming if we presented that, we would hear back whether we get a video conference or we just get to do a letter.
Well, we had to do both in the past. So even if I met with them directly, we still had to submit our written submission prior to the face-to-face meeting.
Okay.
And it talks about a video submission. It doesn't talk about a video conference. So I'm not certain.
Yeah, it says All public hearings will be held via video teleconference.
Oh, okay.
For
I
video
apologize.
conference presenters, yeah.
I was reading the,
Yeah, it says, please
Fourth
indicate
paragraph
if you are
in the
able to use video conference or would prefer a teleconference.
Yeah, I did it with video too.
okay, I apologize. I was reading the first line where it talks about audio or
No,
video
not
submissions.
a problem.
So just so this doesn't all fall on you, Helen, you want us to forward you?
Ideas, and I'll put it together. Brenda's working on budget, so I will pick her
It's
brains.
not a great time.
But, I mean, we've got some guidelines, we've got some things. I think there are still some areas out of the funding formula review, such as funding for our key distance learning, which still hasn't been decided, that we'd kind of like to probably say some things about what's important to us. So if there's other things that come to mind. Brenda, do you have any? That was one right off the top.
Well, and one thing I noticed that's an ongoing challenge for recruitment and retention is incentives for the northern communities. That's something that it continues to be a challenge, or it would assist with retention, particularly for the really remote areas of our district.
As well as the shoulder tappers for careers, careers and education. I suspect that there's going to be some more information that we might want to put in the submission after our meeting on Wednesday. Because there might be, because I know some of the stuff is on the agenda for our meeting on Wednesday. You know, like shoulder tappers and,
Yeah.
you know, those are some other items. So we might actually have something come out of that.
And I can have Leah forward the letter that Aaron submitted last year if you want to see that, so you kind of know what we said before and where we're headed. Brenda was very good at reminding me it's nice to say thank you for the good things that have come our way, because that makes it way easier to slip in about we'd like more. And we are facing southern districts that have seen a reduction in their envelope of funding who are now complaining about us a little tiny bit. So we want to squelch that and counter that if we can. All right, Miss Michelle Weed, you are up. PRNTA update.
All right, just a couple things. So last week on Tuesday, we had our local elections, our AGM. And so I was, oh, that's all right. So I was acclaimed for another 2 years for local president. I did accept. And Mary is vice president for another year. And a lot of our exec is the same. We have a new social justice chair. So yeah, so her name is Emily McPherson. She's LET at Ambrose. And have a new French contact. It's Isabella will be doing that portfolio. And actually today we started the BCTF. It was a virtual AGM, by the way. So it was our first ever go-to meeting. That's the platform we're using. And we had a very good turnout, and we figured out how to do the voting and like all the elections and all of that. So it was a very big learning curve for this girl. And we're doing the BCTF has their AGM. It was today from 1 to 5:30, and it'll be tomorrow and Wednesday from 1 to 5:30 as well. And so the delegates are at the local office here, and we're doing that virtually. It was the first ever. It's the 104th BCTF AGM. Wow. Yeah, I know, hey. And the last thing I would like to say is, honestly, like a big thank you to SD 60 staff, QP teachers, district staff, admin, all the people, health and safety, Sabrina at facilities. Honestly, it takes a team to put this together to move forward. And I just have been really pleased with the collaboration and care that the district has put forward with a path, with a plan to go forward next week, and really has taken input from everybody. So it's been quite something. And I don't think a thank you is even enough for me to even say, but that's the only words that I have. So yeah, and thank you again. I think I said that last month and I will just say that again. So I appreciate the support, and I know teachers do as well, and students and parents of our children, our families, right? We play such a big role in that in our community. So thank you very much.
Your turn, Maureen.
Well, before I start, I sneak in between the two ladies. I ended up with a document in my possession that actually shouldn't have gone to Steve.
Bravo. That's good. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll never let that down.
Anyway, I had to give a review earlier today. I should have had this with me. This would be perfect. That's excellent. Thank you.
So maybe that should be added to the superintendent's job description,
Yes.
Bruce Wrangler and other duties as assigned.
It's certainly going to be added to the, on my wall.
Yeah.
In his office. So, bravo.
That's lovely. But seriously, I appreciate having a superintendent who has a sense of humor. You can do that. And I've got to echo what Michelle said. I really appreciate the collaboration between PRNTA, the school district, the health and safety, all the employees. It was kind of interesting. I had a Northern Region President's Council meeting this afternoon. And so we're going through all the presidents and talking about what's going on with their districts. And I thought, ooh, man, wouldn't want to be with some of those districts. So I just want to say that I really appreciate the opportunity and the chance to collaborate and the respect. You know, we don't always agree. We'll go into our meetings and maybe have completely opposing viewpoints, but it's always done respectfully. And I appreciate that.
Thank you, Marie.
We don't have anybody from District Parent Advisory Council. Questions from the press and public? There are no here. We'll check that off. In-camera motions brought forward for implementation. We
We'll have to do that after because we haven't finished.
We haven't finished in camera, so we'll have to do that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a process for questions from the public with our live streaming? Like, is there any, they can't message in or out? No.
Not yet, but we're working on it.
I don't think we're being bombarded, but.
Fair enough.
Could they have zoomed in?
You can only watch it live stream, but not, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about the media. The media.
No, the public can only watch the YouTube. We're
Those people that regularly come that are on our public list that have been asked to be part of the public list.
did get us.
They can zoom in. Okay.
So can I have a motion to adjourn?
No, we can't do that tonight. We're just going to suspend this.
Okay, we're going to suspend this agenda.
In case there is motions to bring forward from there.
So we're suspending this agenda and moving back into camera.
Taking a break.
Devon, yeah, we're going to take a quick break. Michelle, I won't hug you and say congratulations.
Thank you for everything. I did do.